Welcome back everyone. So quite a lot to go through today. Let me tell you what we are going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about Englishness. Is Shabana Mahmood English? Can she ever be English? Or is it just semantics? Are we suddenly going down a race route that we've no need to go down? Nobody wants to go down the race route. But seeing as she brought it up at the Labour Party conference last week, it's something that I feel we got to discuss, and I'm going to give you my honest opinion today in what is a very, very sensitive and difficult subject. If I'm honest, it's not one that I really want to talk about, but we're going to talk about it. The other thing we're going to be discussing today is the Pro-Palestine Movement in the United Kingdom. Now, I believe that these people do not want peace. They're not here for a peaceful life. They're not out on the streets demonstrating for peace in the Middle East. They're out on the streets to try and take over. And when they chant from the river to the sea, what that really means is they want every Jew on planet Earth eliminated. Not just in the Middle East, not just in Gaza, not just in Israel, but right across the world. And I'm going to tell you why I've come to that conclusion. But we'll start off with Shabana Mahmood's claim to be English. Like I said, it's a very, very sensitive and difficult subject. I've got friends who are mixed race, I've got friends that are black, I've got friends that have come from all over the world, or their families have at least, and they definitely class themselves as being British and English. But the can of worms that Shabana Mahmood has opened is the actual ethnicity of someone. And there was no need to ever open up that can of worms. Nobody had been speaking about that. It wasn't a discussion. It wasn't a topic. The whole issue that we have back at home right now is all about illegal migration and what is basically being seen as the indigenous British people as almost a takeover of our society. That's the problem. It's never been about colour or race. It's really about sectarianism. It's about religion. And it's also about a change of culture, a rapid change of culture that the British people, albeit what colour they are, it doesn't matter what colour they are, it's the cultural change that has set this all off. And it's been expedited, hasn't it, by the Pro-Palestine Movement. So it all kind of goes hand in hand, really, and we'll discuss. So, can Shabana Mahmood be English? Well, yes and no. Now, let me explain, because I know there'll be some people going, oh, what's he talking about? She can never be English. Well, technically, you're right. She is a British-born Pakistani girl of Pakistani parents. There's no problem with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, in America, they have Irish Americans, Italian Americans, Polish Americans. They all have their own proud communities, and they all get along with each other. That's what makes them Americans. But none of them can claim to be indigenous Americans. I said this in a video the other day, and we all know what happened to the indigenous American population, don't we? Now, that was a genocide. So technically, from a DNA viewpoint, Shabana Mahmood can never be ethnically English. She can be British, and I'm happy to go along with that. She can be English to the point where she could play for the England women's football team because she was born here. Technically, from a football viewpoint at least, that makes her eligible to play for England. I've got a daughter here. If she has another child whilst she's living here in Spain, when that child grows up, that child could choose to play for Spain or for England, but they would never be ethnically Spanish. That's just a DNA fact. But I don't know why we're going down this route. I don't know why this is being discussed right now. Well, I do know why it's being discussed, because that silly cow brought it up. She brought it into play, causing more division, and now people are talking about race rather than the real issue. Is she just trying to swerve the subject? Is she trying to divert the problem? I don't know. You'd have to ask her. But she should be ashamed of herself for bringing this bullshit up. Nobody was talking about who can be English, who can't be English, who is British, who isn't British. None of that really matters right now. That is a completely aside to the problem that we have, which we're going to come on to in just a moment. But that is, for me, just an aside. And I don't want my black and mixed race friends suddenly thinking that we doubt their Englishness. For me, it's not about the colour of their skin, it's about the colour of their heart. And all of my friends that are non-white, well, their heart is as English as mine, their heart. Not necessarily their DNA, that's just a scientific fact. I could move to Jamaica and I could have as many children as I want in Jamaica, but it doesn't make them genetically Jamaican, does it? That's not being racist, that's just pointing out a fact. You can park your bike wherever you want, but it doesn't make it a car. And that's the thing, that's the situation, and this is why it's irrelevant. It's an irrelevancy to me. And this is the first and last time that I really want to talk about ethnicity, because she brought up ethno-nationalism. Very, very, very divisive and very dangerous. And it will, if we're not careful, it will start to cause divide between people with different colour skins. And A, we don't want that, B, we don't need it, and C, it is totally and utterly unnecessary and brought into this game by one person and one person only, Shabana Mahmood. She is responsible for this topic, for this video today, and many other videos that are being made right now by political commentators, social media users, who are now talking about the difference in our ethnicity when it was never ever a goddamn bloody question. So let's move on to the biggest topic of today, and for me the more relevant one. This pro-Palestine movement, which has grown to an obscenely huge level, not only in the UK, but right across Europe, across the world in many cases, Australia, New Zealand, the United States. But none of those places, including the Middle East, is any of my business, in all honesty. I mean, I care, of course, but it's not actually any of my business. What is my business is what takes place at home. I have family live there, I have grandchildren that live there, I have a daughter that lives there, I have a son that lives there. Most of my family is still in England, unfortunately. So what takes place there is very much my concern and very much my business. And what I see from these people, what I've seen over the last couple of years, since October the 7th, 2023, and tomorrow is the anniversary of that odious event, and we must all take time on the 7th of October to reflect on what happened and to all the beautiful people that were lost to a mass murder, a mass terrorist attack by armed lunatics who chose to go into another country and murder innocent people. And they did a lot worse than that as well. If you can do anything worse than murder, what they did before the murder made it even worse. How can anyone even begin to defend that or call that the part of a wider struggle is beyond me. The 7th of October 2023 was the work of monsters. End of story. Fact. There is nothing more to say about it. What we see on the streets of the United Kingdom right now is people supporting that cause and excusing the events of the 7th of October 2023, which I find absolutely vile, absolutely disgusting. There are two videos this week. I'm going to play them to you both. They're very short. That really, for me, sum this whole situation up for us in the United Kingdom at least. I'm not talking about for the people of the Middle East. I'm talking about for the people of the United Kingdom. These two videos sum up the situation and why I believe any Palestinians being invited into the UK will be an absolute disaster on top of the disaster that we already have with far too many of their supporters of their cause already here. We need to get rid of a lot of those people. The ones that are hiding their faces, telling us that they're going to take over, telling us that we've got to live our lives in a fashion that they agree with. They've got to go. But let's look at the first of the two videos. This is why I believe that the people of Palestine, the vast majority of them, not all of them of course, and this is a very difficult video to show you, But this basically sums up for me the attitude of the Palestinian people when it comes to those in the West, and in particular the Jews. Watch this.
على عهدي على ديني على أرض تلاقيني أنا لأهلي أنا فديهم أنا دمي فلسطيني فلسطيني.
How do we deal with a people that brings their children up in that fashion? If you love your children, if you truly love your kids, don't you try and guarantee their safety, their futures, their happiness, their welfare? Don't you try and teach them to get along with other people wherever and whenever possible? Don't you try and teach them to avoid conflict rather than take it head on? Don't you bring them up in a peaceful, loving fashion instead of bringing them up to hate and to want to harm other people? How do you deal with an attitude like that? You can't. It's impossible. I don't believe these people want peace. They're not here for peace. They're here to take over. And that is the problem. Now, the second video that I want to show you today is actually about Denmark. It's not about the UK, it's about Denmark. But for Denmark, read the UK. Listen very carefully to these statistics.
1992, the Danish government passed a law allowing the immigration, specifically of 321 refugees from Palestine. And the study followed them from 1992 to 2019. Out of the original 321 Palestinians, 204 ended up being convicted of a crime. 71 of them were jailed, and 176 ended up on welfare. So that accounts for 63% became criminals and were convicted, and more than half ended up on welfare. So they followed the second generation. They had 999 children. 337 ended up being convicted of a crime. 132 of them ended up being jailed, and 372 of them ended up on welfare. So that's a 34% conviction rate and a 37% welfare rate. Their very own justice minister later stated in a 2019 interview, and this is the guy who presided over this entire thing, by the way, and I quote, "These asylum seekers should not have been let in."
Now, if that doesn't offer everyone a stark warning, if that doesn't tell everyone what we are facing right across Europe, if that doesn't hit home, then I don't know what does. The statistics don't lie. The facts are the facts. This is not me picking on any community. This is not me singling out and supporting or going against any one particular cause. These are the facts that we see right in front of our very eyes in the UK. Again, a reminder, I'm not talking about the problems or the arguments or the debates or the war or the sides in the Middle East. I'm talking about what happens at home in the United Kingdom. Is this what we want for our kids down the line? The first video shows you the attitude of the vast majority of the people that I believe live in Gaza. Remember, they are the ones that voted in Hamas. It's their own government that stops them from getting the food and the aid that they so desperately apparently require. It's their own bombs that blow up their own hospitals. It's their own people that put their women and children in tunnels, under hospitals, under schools, etc., etc. These people do not want peace. They want to win. They want victory, and they will not stop until they either get it or they're eliminated. So can there ever be peace? I'm not sure there can be. There can be a uneasy truce, but it won't last. It will never last, because they are sworn to the death to kill every single Jew on the planet. And that, my friends, we can never change. And we certainly can't change it in the United Kingdom. But what we must make sure is we must make sure that this violence, this sectarianism, this hatred doesn't spill out onto the streets of our country. And I'm afraid it's happening, and it's increasing by the day. The Jewish community in the UK must be living in absolute terror. Absolute terror. Can you even imagine what it must be like to be Jewish living in the United Kingdom right now? They must feel that this is 1939 Munich all over again and it's time to go. The only choice they have to make is, do we go now or do they wait until it's too late? That's the situation that our Jewish community is in, and it is utterly and absolutely appalling, and it is completely and utterly unacceptable. And our government, if it wants long-term peace in our country, if it really believes in the unity that they tell us they want, they need to stamp down very, very hard on anti-Semitism and the anti-Jewish feeling across the country, and especially when these hate marches take place. I am a believer in free speech. I don't really believe, I'm not comfortable with banning marches. If they want to march, let them do it. Let them reveal themselves for what and who they are, but the face masks have to stop. Those silly tea towels that they're wearing around their faces with the sunglasses have to stop. The ability to hide your identity on these marches has to be taken away. Because I strongly believe, I firmly believe, that a lot of these people involved in these marches have no interest in what's going on in the Middle East whatsoever. The only interest they have is destroying the society that we live in. And they must be unmasked. So for me, if they want to march, let them march. This is a free country. But with a caveat, I would say that if we had the right government, 60% of those people marching would be deported. The rest were born here or are indigenous British people. Unfortunately, we can't get rid of them. Well, let them unmask themselves, make them unmask themselves, and let's see who they are. Let's see what jobs they're in, because I'll tell you now, as I said the other day in the video, there are a lot of NHS workers, doctors, dentists, nurses, people who are treating me and you. And that is a very, very frightening proposition. That is a very frightening aspect of the life that we live in now. We don't know if the people that are there to protect us and to save our lives actually want to destroy us. How the hell did we even get here? And if this situation isn't reversed, if we don't get a government next time that reverses basically the genocide of the British people and our way of life over the last 25, 30 years, if the next government doesn't start to reverse that, then I just don't know the hell where we're going to end up. But I can tell you this, it won't be a good place. It will resemble something like the Middle East. And that, my friends, is an absolute guarantee.